Pilot ordered a black woman to move seats, then froze when she flashed her federal ID. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. You're in the wrong seat. The words cracked through the cabin like a thunderclap. Passengers froze mid-sip, mid-scroll, mid-breath. The air at 30,000 feet suddenly felt heavy. Captain Reynolds stood towering over a black woman in uniform, his finger slicing the space between them. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Her name tag read Naomi Ellis, and in her hands a leather binder embossed in silver accountability protocol. A nervous flight attendant beside him whispered, "Captain, maybe." "Silence," he barked. "This area is for authorized crew only. Move her to the back." Heads turned. An elderly woman 2 rows behind frowned, clutching her rosary. A businessman lowered his laptop, whispering, "What's happening?" No one answered. Naomi closed the binder slowly. The sound was soft, but it landed like judgment. "If you believe I'm in the wrong seat, Captain," she said evenly, "follow procedure." "Not impulse," he scoffed. "Procedure, don't lecture me on my own aircraft." The young attendant's lips trembled. "Sir, please," I said, "move her," Reynolds roared. The quiet cracked again, this time with the click of a phone camera. A man muttered, "This doesn't feel right." Naomi inhaled, once steady and calm, like someone who'd seen storms before. She'd faced this tone in boardrooms, in terminals, in glass offices where bias wore a smile. But never this high, never this loud. "You're delaying my takeoff," Reynolds snapped. Then perhaps she replied softly, "You should learn what keeps planes from falling. But before we go any further, take a breath. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Naomi. Reynolds leaned closer, voice low but venomous. "I don't care what badge you wear, you don't belong here." Naomi's gaze sharpened. Her hand brushed the edge of her badge, fingers steady. "Funny," she said, lifting the binder again because this seat was reserved for accountability. The cabin fell silent, and for the first time it wasn't her who looked out of place, it was him. Reynolds didn't move. His hand hovered near the overhead intercom, as if authority itself could be summoned with a button. "Ma'am," he said, the words sharp as glass, "I'm giving you one last chance to cooperate." Naomi didn't answer. She adjusted her seatbelt, calm, deliberate, a woman securing herself before turbulence. From row 4, a passenger whispered. "Why is he talking to her like that?" Another voice replied. "Because he thinks he can." The young flight attendant, Anna, tried again. "Captain, she's part of." I said enough, Reynolds barked, cutting her off mid-breath. His tone carried through the cabin, ricocheting off the windows. Naomi glanced toward Anna, her expression softening for a moment, a silent thank you that said, "Stand down. I've seen worse." She opened her binder again, its silver lettering catching the cabin lights. The sound drew eyes like gravity. "Section 42, she said evenly. "Crew misconduct and passenger harassment." "Shall I read it to you?" Reynolds sneered. "You think quoting policy intimidates me?" "No," she replied, closing the binder once more. "Policy protects you from yourself." A beat of silence, the kind that hums before a storm. From behind, a middle-aged man began recording. "This is wild," he whispered. The lens trembled as the red light blinked alive. A woman beside him muttered, "She's too calm." "That's the kind of calm that changes things," Reynolds exhaled sharply. "If you don't leave this seat, I'll have security meet us on landing." Naomi looked up, her tone quiet but surgical. "Then make sure they bring a federal liaison. I'd hate for your incident report to go missing again." That word "again" cut deeper than any insult. He froze. "What do you mean again?" Naomi tilted her head slightly. "You've had 3 passenger complaints in 12 months. 1 sealed, 2 unresolved, all marked communication issue. Want to correct that today?" Anna's eyes widened. "She knows the file," she whispered. Reynolds' jaw tightened, his authority shrinking inch by inch. The elderly woman in row 6 crossed herself quietly. "Lord, she's not afraid," she murmured. Naomi placed the binder on the tray table, folded her hands atop it, and spoke clearly enough for the cabin to hear. "I am not here to fight. I am here to observe. You're providing the demonstration." The cabin fell completely silent except for the faint hum of the engines, steady and unbothered like the sky itself was listening. The intercom chimed. a chime that usually meant calm, but this time it sounded like a warning. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Reynolds' voice echoed, forced and tight. "We're experiencing a brief delay due to a crew compliance issue." The words dropped into the cabin like oil into water, slow spreading, impossible to take back. Heads turned. Phones lifted higher. A man in seat 3B muttered he just called her a problem. The elderly woman from row 6 whispered he's digging his own grave. Naomi didn't move. Her fingers rested on the silver binder still closed. Every breath she took was measured, the kind that said, "You're not the first, and you won't be the last." Anna hovered near the galley, trembling. "Captain, please, she's an inspector. Her ID matches FAA clearance," he spun on her. "That's enough out of you, miss." His voice cracked, but his pride refused to. The passengers felt it, that invisible current when fear shifts sides. The powerful man in uniform was losing ground to the woman who never raised her voice. Naomi finally spoke. "When authority mistakes itself for immunity," she said softly, "this is what turbulence looks like." Reynolds' jaw tightened. "You can't talk to me like that." "I already did," she answered. From row 4, someone whispered, "God, she's fearless." Another replied, "No, she's tired." The plane hummed on altitude steady, but the cabin was a courtroom now, and silence was testimony. Reynolds slammed his hand on the intercom again. "Security will meet us on landing," he growled. "You'll answer for insubordination." Naomi tilted her head slightly, almost curious. "And you'll answer for violating federal aviation ethics in front of 50 witnesses and 8 cameras. Make sure your lawyer likes turbulence, Captain." A few muffled laughs slipped through the rows, the kind of nervous laughter that breaks when justice begins to show its face. Anna stepped closer. "Dr. Ellis," she whispered, voice trembling. "Do you want me to call the ground office?" Naomi shook her head gently. "Not yet. Let the truth finish speaking." Reynolds turned to her again, desperate for control. "You don't scare me." Naomi's voice dropped to a whisper, but it carried farther than his shouting ever could. "Fear isn't required, Captain. Just awareness." Then she reached slowly into her pocket and placed her federal ID on the tray table. The metal caught the cabin light and flashed calm, undeniable. Reynolds froze mid-breath. A ripple of gasps swept through the cabin. Anna covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Naomi didn't look at him. Now she said quietly, "Shall we review your conduct or your record?" The engines roared beneath them, and for the first time that flight, the captain was the one who couldn't breathe. Reynolds stared at the metal ID like it was burning through him. The edges caught the cabin light, reflecting the word federal, clear enough for every nearby passenger to read. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was power redistributing. Naomi didn't rush. She let the moment breathe. Then quietly, "This isn't about a seat, Captain. It's about conduct." Anna stood frozen near the galley, her voice small but trembling with relief. "She warned you. I told you she was cleared." Reynolds' lips parted, but nothing came out. His authority, so loud minutes ago, now sounded like static. "Federal inspection," he finally stammered. "Why wasn't I informed?" Naomi lifted her gaze. "Because integrity isn't announced. It's tested." A murmur rippled through the cabin. A man whispered, "She's FAA," another replied. No wonder she was calm. Even the engines seemed to settle into a lower, steadier hum, as if the plane itself exhaled. Reynolds took one step back, still trying to save face. I was following safety protocol." Naomi tilted her head slightly. "Safety or ego? Because only one of those flies." Someone clapped once sharp, sudden, then stopped unsure. But it was enough. The cabin's tension cracked. A wave of low applause followed, awkward but real. Naomi turned to the passengers, her tone calm but firm. "I appreciate your patience. What you've witnessed today isn't unique, it's systemic. And it ends where accountability begins." Her words hung in the recycled air, soft but immovable. Reynolds' face flushed red. "You can't just humiliate me in front of my crew," Naomi cut him off, not with volume but precision. "I didn't humiliate you, Captain. You did that yourself. I simply kept the record accurate." Anna took a small step forward. "Dr. Ellis, do you want me to report this to ground control?" Naomi nodded once. "Yes. Initiate internal protocol review. Mark timestamp at 1300 hours. Her tone was crisp, professional, the kind of tone that could dismantle careers without ever breaking composure. Reynolds rubbed his temples, searching for control that wasn't there. "You don't understand what this will do to me." Naomi looked at him, empathy without pity. "Then maybe you'll understand what it does to every woman who's told she doesn't belong where she's already earned the right to stand." The passengers fell silent again, not out of fear this time, but respect. Reynolds finally sank into the jump seat, staring at the floor. Naomi opened her binder pen, poised. "Statement begins," she said softly. "Captain initiated verbal misconduct at 10:27 a.m. Under flight regulation breach." Her voice was steady, professional. And in that cabin above the clouds, justice didn't roar. It documented line by line until truth reached cruising altitude. The engines droned steady above a silence that wasn't peaceful anymore. It was watchful. Every pair of eyes, every lens, every whisper was fixed on Naomi and the man who'd just learned what gravity really feels like. From row 5, a young woman raised her phone. "Ma'am, is it okay if I keep recording?" she asked softly. Naomi didn't look up from her binder. "Yes, transparency protects everyone." Reynolds shifted uncomfortably, the color draining from his face. "Turn that off. You can't film a federal matter." Naomi's tone cut through the air, quiet but absolute. "Correction, Captain, you can't erase one." A ripple of gasps spread through the cabin. Someone muttered, "She's not just inspecting, she's teaching." Anna moved closer, headset in hand. "Dr. Ellis, ground controls on the line," she said. "They've been notified of a mid-flight protocol breach." Naomi nodded, signing a note in her report. "Patch them through when ready." Reynolds slammed his palm on the bulkhead. "You're blowing this out of proportion." Naomi didn't look at him. She spoke like someone reciting a prayer she'd memorized long ago. "Disrespect is always proportionate to fear. And fear," she paused, meeting his eyes, "is not a flight plan." The line landed like turbulence. A man near the aisle leaned over to his seatmate. "She's not even raising her voice." "How's she doing that?" the seatmate whispered back. "That's what power sounds like when it's earned." Reynolds exhaled hard, muttering under his breath, "You people and your quotas." The words barely escaped before the cabin's temperature dropped. Anna froze mid-step. Passengers exchanged looks. Naomi raised one eyebrow, her calm sharpened to steel. "Finish that sentence, Captain. Let's both see what it costs." He didn't. The intercom buzzed again. A voice came through, steady, professional. "Dr. Ellis, this is FAA command. We're receiving live documentation from your device. Proceed at your discretion." Naomi nodded. "Understood." Then to Reynolds. "They're listening now. Continue if you'd like your tone on record." Reynolds' jaw worked, but no sound came. His authority had become oxygen-thin. Anna glanced around, whispering, "Passengers are filming from 5 different angles. This is everywhere by now." Naomi's eyes softened. Not proud, just certain. "Good. Maybe visibility will fly faster than prejudice." The elderly woman from row 6 reached across the aisle and touched Naomi's arm gently. "You're doing God's work, baby." Naomi smiled faintly. "Just paperwork, ma'am. Holy paperwork." A few quiet chuckles rolled through the cabin, the kind that release pressure after too long held breath. Then Naomi's radio pinged again. "Dr. Ellis, do you want to proceed to formal suspension protocol?" She looked toward Reynolds, who sat slumped in his jump seat, hands trembling. "Not yet," she said. "Let him land the plane first. Dignity deserves a safe landing even for those still learning it." And with that, she turned another page in her binder ink against silence while justice calmly filled the sky. The plane cut through a sea of clouds, sunlight pouring in like an uninvited witness. Reynolds stayed in his jump seat, staring at the controls as if they could save him. His knuckles white, his pride evaporating at 30,000 feet. Naomi kept writing. Her pen moved with the rhythm of certainty. Each stroke of ink felt like a verdict. Anna approached quietly, headset still pressed to one ear. "Dr. Ellis, command confirms your ID and authority. They're monitoring live feed. What are your next steps?" Naomi didn't look up. "Observation first. Reflection second. Consequence last." Reynolds finally spoke, his voice low, almost pleading. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Every flight, every eye waiting for me to mess up." Naomi paused mid-sentence, then turned toward him. "So you passed that pressure down the line. You made someone else smaller to feel safe." Her words weren't sharp. They were surgical, precise enough to cut without drawing blood. From row 4, the man with the camera whispered. "She's dismantling him word by word." The woman beside him murmured, "That's not destruction. That's education." Naomi closed her binder and leaned back slightly. "Tell me, Captain," she said. "What did you see when you looked at me?" Reynolds hesitated. "A flight attendant. Maybe someone trying to sneak into first class." Naomi nodded slowly. "Exactly. You didn't see my credentials. You saw your assumptions." The engines hummed like a heartbeat under confession. He swallowed hard. "I've seen imposters before." You thought wrong," she interrupted gently. "And thinking wrong is forgivable. Acting wrong isn't." Anna looked from one to the other, her eyes glistening. Dr. Ellis, will he lose his license? Naomi sighed softly. That depends on whether he learns before landing. The radio crackled again. FAA command, Dr. Ellis, please confirm continuation of onboard review. Naomi pressed the button on her earpiece. Confirmed. All parties remain cooperative. She glanced toward Reynolds, then added quietly, but with weight. That includes you, Captain. Cooperation isn't silence. It's honesty. He nodded once barely, as if something inside him had started to surrender. The passengers were still watching, but now the room had changed. The fear was gone. What lingered was respect, a quiet recognition that they were witnessing something bigger than a dispute. Naomi turned to the crowd, her voice steady measured for every recording phone in sight. Let this flight record show. Professionalism isn't a title, it's a choice. Made every hour, every seat, every sky. Then she picked up her pen again, her reflection caught faintly in the cabin window. Calm, composed, unshakable as the aircraft began its slow, humbled descent through the light. The seatbelt sign chimed, the cabin dimmed orange light washing over faces that hadn't blinked in minutes. Every passenger could feel it. The altitude had changed, but not because of turbulence. Power was descending. Reynolds still hadn't moved. His reflection in the cockpit window looked smaller, now swallowed by the sky he once commanded. Sweat pooled at his collar and his headset lay unused, silent like his pride. Naomi set her pen down. Captain, she said evenly, I'll need your full incident statement once we land. He nodded stiffly. Of course. Her tone didn't soften. No, not to me. To the people who trusted you to carry lives, not your ego. From the rear cabin, a teenage girl whispered to her mother, she sounds like a judge. Her mother smiled faintly. No, honey, she sounds free. Anna lingered by the galley, glancing between them. Ground control confirmed a debrief on arrival, she said quietly. Security will escort for review standard procedure. Naomi nodded. Then we'll make it standard for everyone. Reynolds rubbed his temple, the strain in his voice finally cracking. You think you've won something here? Naomi looked up slowly, eyes calm, almost kind. Winning implies I was competing. I was documenting. The line hit like cold air. Even Anna exhaled softly, as if something inside her had just unclenched. Reynolds turned away, jaw tight. You could have embarrassed me in front of the passengers. Naomi arched an eyebrow. And yet you did that yourself in surround sound. Phones caught that one. Every angle, every syllable. From seat 5 amperes, a man murmured. That's the quote. That's the one they'll use online. A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the rows, small, restrained, but real. Naomi leaned back, her voice quieter now, almost reflective. Do you know why I fly, Captain? She asked. He didn't answer. Because every mile between takeoff and landing is a lesson in humility. The sky doesn't care who you think you are, it only responds to how well you handle pressure. The words settled deep into the recycled air. Anna took a tentative step forward. Dr. Ellis, do you ever get tired of doing this? Naomi's gaze softened. Of writing reports constantly. Of seeing truth unfold in real time, never. A silence followed, heavy but not hostile. A quiet surrender shared by everyone who'd watched arrogance unravel midair. Then, through the window, city lights began to glimmer far below faint constellations of consequence. Naomi straightened her posture, clicked her pen closed, and said, Prepare for landing, Captain. Integrity touches down before the wheels do. And for the first time since the confrontation began, Reynolds didn't argue. He just reached for the controls voice, low-measured human again. Landing checklist, he muttered. Naomi's eyes drifted to the horizon. Justice, she thought, always flies home on schedule. The city lights grew sharper beneath them, forming veins of gold across the darkness. The aircraft tilted gently, descending toward the runway. In the silence of approach, everyone could feel the tension thinning but not gone. It was being replaced by something heavier, realization. Reynolds' voice came over the intercom, subdued and careful. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin our final descent into Washington, D.C. Please fasten your seatbelts. His tone was steady now, the edge gone. But the tremor underneath said what he couldn't. Naomi glanced at her watch, then at Anna. Timestamp descent initiated at 1942. Maintain observation log until full stop. Anna nodded, professional, but visibly moved. Yes, ma'am. The passengers followed every motion, every flicker of eye contact, every calm command. A few were still filming, though no one pretended anymore. They knew they were witnessing accountability midair. Reynolds adjusted the throttle. You've made your point, he muttered. Naomi didn't look up. Not my point, Captain. The systems. He swallowed. And what happens when we land? She met his gaze through the reflection in the glass. You file your report. I file mine. Truth lands first. The plane dipped lower, the hum deepening. Outside, the lights stretched like a runway of consequence. Row by row, passengers watched in silence. Even the child who had been fidgeting earlier sat still, sensing the gravity in the air. A woman whispered, "He's lucky she's merciful." Naomi reached into her blazer, pulling out a small earpiece. "Command," she said quietly, Dr. Ellis reporting. "In-flight incident contained. Preparing for ground review." A voice replied through static. "Copy that. Security and FAA liaison standing by. Do you require escort?" She glanced at Reynolds, now rigid but compliant. "No escort necessary. Respect is its own escort." Anna's eyes flicked to her admiration, written plain. "You could have ended his career up here," she said softly. Naomi smiled faintly. "Justice doesn't rush. It lands safely." The landing gear extended with a thud. The cabin vibrated, a shiver running through metal and bone alike. Passengers gripped armrests, not out of fear but anticipation. Reynolds' breathing steadied. His voice returned to protocol. "Flaps 20. Gear down. Speed check." Naomi watched him work. There was no triumph in her eyes, only a quiet verification that procedure still meant something. As the runway lights surged upward, she spoke one last time before impact. "Captain, remember this descent. You weren't losing altitude. You were regaining perspective." The tires hit asphalt with a heavy, grounding roar. Gasps turned into applause, soft at first, then rising like release. Naomi didn't join them. She simply closed her binder and whispered more to herself than anyone else. "The sky forgives. Paperwork doesn't." And with that, Flight 217 rolled to a stop, its engines humming the quiet sound of consequences, arriving exactly on time. The cabin lights blinked back to full brightness as the plane taxied toward the gate. The applause faded, replaced by murmurs, half-whispers that carried awe more than noise. Reynolds didn't look up. His hands rested on the throttle as if afraid to let go. For the first time since takeoff, he sounded human. "Tower horizon 217, requesting gate 9. Naomi gathered her binder, every motion precise. "Timestamp touchdown 1956, she said quietly. "Incident status stable." Anna confirmed, voice steady but reverent. "Logged." From row 3, a man said under his breath, "She runs the sky like a courtroom." His wife nudged him gently. "No, like a mirror." Outside the window, the tarmac lights blurred in streaks of orange. A convoy of airport vehicles waited, one marked FAA Inspection Unit. Reynolds noticed it first. "They're here already?" he asked, trying to sound indifferent. Naomi's gaze stayed forward. "Accountability arrives faster than convenience, Captain." He swallowed. "Are you here to end my career?" Naomi finally looked at him. Her expression was neither cruel nor kind, just truthful. "I'm here to make sure your next flight doesn't end someone else's." Anna stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Dr. Ellis, ground team ready for debrief." Naomi nodded. "Acknowledge visual. Maintain passenger confidentiality. Secure the cabin recording until transfer." The plane slowed to a crawl, wheels squealing lightly. Passengers leaned, phones ready but respectful now. One teenage boy whispered to his friend, "Man, she's like a superhero." The friend shook his head. "No cape. Just composure." The jet stopped at gate 9. The final chime sounded soft, ceremonial. Reynolds exhaled hard, unclipping his harness. "What happens now?" Naomi closed the binder and rose. "Now, Captain, you listen." She faced the cabin. "For everyone recording, keep your footage. But remember, justice isn't performance. It's persistence." The elderly woman from row 6 smiled, eyes glassy. "We'll remember, baby." Naomi turned back to Reynolds. "Before I disembark, you'll issue an acknowledgement, not to me, to your crew." He hesitated, pride twitching in the corners of his mouth. Then slowly he stood. "Crew," he said hoarsely, "I misjudged. That won't happen again." Anna nodded silently. Even that small sentence felt like history shifting. Naomi extended her hand, not for forgiveness, but for closure. He shook it, unsure, humbled. Outside, the jet bridge latched with a hollow clang. A new sound took over the steady march of approaching footsteps. Naomi adjusted her badge and whispered, "Record finalized." Her calm didn't gloat, it anchored. She gathered her things, eyes set on the waiting officers beyond the door. "Captain Reynolds," she said as she turned, "you may have landed the plane, but integrity lands with me." And with that, she stepped into the corridor of flashing vests and rolling cameras, leaving the cabin wrapped in a silence that sounded suspiciously like respect. The jet bridge stretched ahead, metallic and cold, lined with fluorescent lights that buzzed like anxious thoughts. Naomi walked through it without hurry. Her steps measured her binder pressed to her side like a compass pointing due north. Behind her, the murmurs from the cabin followed fragments of disbelief and admiration. She never yelled. She never had to. She grounded him harder than the landing. At the end of the bridge, two uniformed FAA officers waited, one holding a tablet, the other a sealed evidence bag. They straightened when she approached. "Dr. Ellis," the taller one said, "we've received the live log and passenger footage. You handled this midair." Naomi nodded once. "Incident de-escalated at 30,000 feet. Documentation complete." The officer's eyes widened, impressed, but trying not to show it. "Captain Reynolds." She motioned behind her. "He'll cooperate. He's begun to understand altitude isn't just measured in feet." Reynolds emerged moments later, walking slower than gravity required. He looked smaller now, not in stature but in certainty. Anna followed close behind, clutching a stack of printed reports. Her chin lifted with quiet solidarity. "Captain," Naomi said softly, "you'll give your statement here. My office will handle the rest." He met her eyes briefly, guilt flickering there like static. "You didn't have to destroy me." Naomi's tone was calm, unflinching. "I didn't. I corrected the flight path." The words lingered between them, clinical but compassionate, a balance she'd mastered from years of turning humiliation into instruction. The FAA officer stepped forward. "Dr. Ellis, we'll take it from here. Your intervention prevented escalation. Frankly, it's textbook." Naomi gave a faint smile. "Textbook is good. But culture needs the next chapter." Anna exhaled, shoulders relaxing for the first time in hours. "Thank you, Dr. Ellis. I didn't know how far he'd go." Naomi placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "You spoke up. That's how far integrity goes." Passengers began disembarking, phones still in hand, but no one spoke to Naomi directly. They just nodded as they passed, small gestures of respect, gratitude, vindication. One man paused at the doorway. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I fly every week. Today I saw the sky work right." Naomi's eyes softened. Then it was a good flight after all. Outside, the terminal buzzed with the life of the ground, announcements, footsteps, 100 new journeys waiting to begin. Reynolds was escorted away, head bowed, the bright lights reflecting off his badge as it was turned upside down. Naomi watched him go, then spoke just loud enough for Anna to hear. "It's never about punishment. It's about elevation, the kind that doesn't need wings." And as she walked toward the terminal doors, her reflection in the glass moved alongside her, composed, steady, and untouchable proof that dignity once airborne never lands the same way again. The conference room at Gate 9 was small, cold, and too bright, the kind of light that reveals everything. Naomi sat at the head of the narrow table, her binder open, pen poised, every detail of the flight replaying in silent precision. Across from her sat Captain Reynolds, shoulders tight, uniform slightly wrinkled. He looked like a man suspended mid-air without a parachute. Beside him, an FAA investigator adjusted his glasses, ready to document every word. Anna stood quietly near the wall, still in uniform, still trembling from the weight of the day. Naomi began, voice level steady. "Captain Reynolds, this debrief will be recorded under the FAA Internal Ethics Protocol. You may speak freely, but accuracy is mandatory." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Understood." "Good," she said. "Then let's start with what you thought you saw." Reynolds hesitated, eyes flicking to Anna, then back to Naomi. "I saw a crew member out of position. I assumed she'd made a mistake." Naomi's eyebrow lifted slightly. "You assumed based on what?" He exhaled slowly. "Her appearance. I thought she was not qualified," Naomi finished for him. He nodded, ashamed. "Yes, I thought she didn't belong." The investigator looked up from his notes, expression unreadable. "And did you verify her credentials before acting?" Reynolds' silence was the answer. Naomi leaned forward slightly, her tone not sharp but exact. "You enforced a hierarchy that didn't exist, Captain. You mistook uniform for identity, authority for ownership. And at 30,000 feet, that mistake becomes lethal." He nodded again, voice cracking. "I was wrong." Anna stepped forward, then her courage catching up to her words. "He wasn't just wrong," she said softly. "He was cruel, and I let him be." Naomi turned to her gently. "No, Miss Price. You spoke up, and that was the first correction." Then back to Reynolds. "You have two options. You can treat this as humiliation or education. One will end your career, the other might just restart it." He blinked, unsure how to answer. The investigator cleared his throat. "Dr. Ellis, your recommendation." Naomi closed her binder. "Mandatory suspension pending retraining. Immediate removal from active flight duty until completion. No exemptions. Reynolds bowed his head. I understand. Naomi gathered her papers, standing slowly. Good. Then maybe next time you look at someone and decide who they are, you'll remember this day. As she turned to leave, Anna spoke quietly. Dr. Ellis, how do you stay so calm? Naomi smiled faintly, her voice softer now. Calm isn't natural. It's learned the hard way. The world taught me to hold composure like some people hold breath. And with that, she stepped out into the terminal light, the hum of the airport washing over her like white noise, the sound of justice in motion. The terminal buzzed around her rolling suitcases, intercom chimes the rhythm of departures that never stopped. Yet as Naomi walked through the concourse, the world seemed to slow. She'd written her report, filed the record, closed the binder, but justice, she knew, didn't end with paperwork. It breathed through people who refused to look away. Anna caught up beside her, still carrying the weight of awe. Dr. Ellis, she said, a little breathless, what you did today, it changed everything for me. Naomi smiled. Good. Just remember, change isn't noise. It's consistency. They stopped near a wide window overlooking the runway. The plane she'd just stepped off glowed under floodlights, grounded, quiet, humbled. Reynolds stood on the tarmac below, flanked by officers. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked aware. Anna followed Naomi's gaze. Do you think he'll learn? Naomi's voice was calm, almost kind. If he listens to silence long enough, yes. A few passengers passed by, still whispering about the woman from Flight 217. One of them, the elderly lady from row 6, approached slowly, cane-tapping against the tile. My dear, she said, taking Naomi's hand, the way you handled that man, that was grace with steel inside. Naomi chuckled softly. Grace keeps you light. Steel keeps you steady. The old woman nodded. The world needs both. When she walked away, Anna asked, do you ever get tired of being the example? Naomi looked back out at the runway where another plane lifted into the night sky, engines roaring like a promise. Every day, she said. But that's the cost of altitude, staying above what tried to hold you down. Her phone buzzed. A message from FAA Command Incident Review complete. Full clearance. Outstanding professionalism. She turned the screen toward Anna. There's your ending. Anna smiled. Feels more like a beginning. Naomi closed her binder one last time. The silver letters accountability protocol reflected the terminal lights like constellations. She whispered mostly to herself. The sky doesn't belong to rank or color. It belongs to those who keep it honest. As she walked toward the exit, her reflection moved along the glass, a quiet shadow of composure and consequence. Outside night stretched wide open, unjudging. Planes rose and landed like heartbeats, proof that even when storms happen mid-air, there's always a way to land right. Naomi Ellis adjusted her badge, straightened her shoulders, and disappeared into the crowd. No cameras, no applause, just purpose. Her last words lingered in the air she left behind. I don't need a video to prove it. I am the result of everyone. And with that, the terminal exhaled as if even the sky itself had just signed her name.